Okay, here we go. We're gonna be trying a bit of a test here, um, because it doesn't seem like people really read blog posts anymore, and I really do enjoy writing my blog post. I write it specifically and more specifically for myself than anyone else, because it's a place in which I can put my thoughts and my ideas about art or whatever I'm doing in a place that's a lot more formal than, say, just putting it in my sketchbook or my journal and putting it up on a shelf. So I thought I'd give this a whirl because it seemed interesting, and my husband Baron has so nicely offered to let me use some of his recording equipment. So here I am, getting ready to do my first it's not a vlog, it's an audio blog, I guess. I don't know. I have no intro, I have no outro. I don't quite know what I'm doing. I'm just sitting in my little art midden, drinking my coffee on a Sunday morning, and thinking about the blog post that I wrote yesterday. The big blog post, the large one, not one of the small ones. And I'm going to read some of it. And let's see if maybe people like to listen to this. I don't know that I have a particularly nice voice to listen to, but it's the one I got. So here we go. I had been batting around a topic for this post in my mind for the better part of like the past month, except for a repost of another creator's opinion, Miss Dani Dazey, who I misspelled her name in my blog post. My apologies, Ms. Daisy. I reposted something that she had talked about on this particular topic, and I had a seriously bizarre conversation consisting of an afternoon of back and forth messaging with a stranger via Instagram DM. Other than that, I've not written a whole lot more explicitly to do with my personal opinions on this particular topic. I suppose that I wanted to have some time to work out my thoughts and feelings and opinions. What are they actually? Instead of just kind of knee-jerking it, which sometimes I want to do. And then there's the whole bottom of the internet that you kind of have to deal with when you have, topics that are controversial. So yeah, you pretty much guessed it. I'm getting ready to talk about AI generated images. So buckle up. This is gonna kind of wander more or less all over Hell's Half Acre. So to set up some parameters, I think it's kind of important for me to set those down for this blog post before I get too far along. This blog post isn't meant to represent anyone else. It's just me. It's all my personal thoughts and feelings and opinions only. There are a few people that I'll cite going along the way, and I do highly, highly recommend that you read and watch the artists that I do cite. Two in particular that I do cite. They have their own reflections on the subject of AI-generated images that deserve to be heard, and I think are very valid. There's not going to be a whole lot about any individual AI-generating programs either. I haven't used any of them, and I don't intend on using any of them in the near future. Don't bother arguing with me regarding that declaration either. It's a waste of our time, and with that being said, let's just get on with it. Yesterday afternoon, which was actually Friday. For the past 2 or maybe 3 weeks, I've been working on a project that had a very definite deadline. I had 5 portions of the project that had to be turned in on a specific date to fulfill a contractual obligation. All of the creative energies, my creative energies for the greater part, were channeled into this project and that deadline. Many of the pieces that I wanted to work on had to be put aside until I was done with that specific project. Around 2 p.m. yesterday, I finally got to sit down and create some small, 4 centimeter tall, roughly 1.5 inch tall, stuffed felt letters for a Valentine's themed project that I'm thinking about putting into my shop. While I'd been working with typefaces for over 30 years, yes, you heard it, over 30 years, I've never made any small stuffed felt letter forms. Like, never. It really occurred to me, like, I've never done this before. Weird. I made some measurements, created some paper drawings of what I wanted. The paper letters were cut out, then transferred onto some carton board that I recycled, and I used an X-Acto to cut them out. And then those templates I just traced onto felt. And from there I did a lot of pinning and a lot of cutting and a lot of sewing, a lot of hand sewing, because for longtime readers and knowers of me, I sew mostly by hand, almost exclusively. The sewing and stuffing didn't take long, and in all I created about 12 letters and some punctuation. I spent about 6 hours from the first measurements to the last stitch. Honestly, getting the pieces prepped was what I thought was the most arduous task of creating everything. Okay, so what? You made some letters, big deal. Remember, I've worked with fonts for 30 years. When I began at the Visual Communications, i.e. graphic design program at the Heron School of Art, that's where I graduated from, there were a lot of changes going on in the field of graphic design. Computers are beginning to take the lead. Boards, paste ups, and along with typesetting and many other printing related jobs were kind of going the way of the dodo. Really didn't need to do those jobs anymore. Technology was changing quickly. I learned to create boards and films and all kinds of things that really aren't used anymore. What I'm getting at is the fact that I know technology changes quickly. My first typography course had us using placa and painting like these large letter forms on whiteboard with like a brush and ink. I think it was called placa ink. And right now I can sit down at my laptop with the software that I have and can create a design for almost anything, then send it via the internet to a printer who is, I kid you not, about 6 blocks away, that will print it and cut it and have it ready for me within a day or two. I mean, that's super cool. Technology rocks. But what about these stuffed letters? Yeah, I did take a weird turn there, didn't I? Yeah, if you know me, you know me. So with all my accumulated knowledge and experience with fonts and type, I finally made some fine stuffed letters. Big, fat, hairy, flippin' deal. I basically said to myself, and I can hear you saying that too. Actually, I used a lot of my own efficacy, and if you know me, I'm a big old Albert Bandura whore. The efficacy is just your knowledge and your expertise, your experience, and then resulting positive experiences that make you good at something. So I got a lot of that. I got a lot of know-how. To someone looking outside at what I was doing, it's like it didn't quite look like I didn't know what I was doing. But I did, but I didn't. Weird. Not only was all of that lovely university knowledge used in the creation of these little letter forms, but the 30 years of experience using type was used as well. And then there were those creepy characters from kindergarten, the ones I'm talking about, the teeth one and the munching mouth, and oh, they were creepy. And that Valentine's mailbox I made in the 4th grade. Oh, and then there was those millions of free hand-cut letters that I made for displays for lessons that I did in elementary school as an art teacher. And then there was the first time I used a Mac, and I learned that there were like different typeface names when I was using a little single body Mac in high school. Yeah, even those lessons, painting a Garamond 5 in black placa ink on a white Bristol board were used. That knowledge was used when I was making these dorky little tiny stuffed letter forms. And then there's also the quadrillion times I've picked up a needle and sewn something by hand too. That had something to do with it. There must be an easier way. I've always felt as though I had one foot planted in the world of technology with the other foot planted in the world of making and creating by hand. This isn't always comfortable for me. It's one of the huge reasons I'm not a good graphic designer at all. That, and I don't like being told how to create. I need to make things by hand. I need to do things with my hands. I can't just do it by computer. I could have created a pattern for each of these letters on my computer. It would have been fairly easy too. Just print out the large letter forms that's big enough for a pattern. Why spend all that time drawing and creating my own pattern? Why would I do that? In retrospect, my whole approach seems kind of dumb when a few clicks could have just printed them out. So why didn't I do just that? Well, the short answer is because I didn't want to. The long answer is always more complicated. Well, the short answer should be enough of an answer for anybody. I know I'll need to explain a bit more. After all, I'm taking the long way around the barn to illustrate many of my points today. If you know me well, this is how I communicate most of the time. The long way. Honestly, this is difficult for me to write. It stems from the fact that how I create as an artist. In its simplest form, there's basically 6 steps for me. Number 1, imagine something. Number 2, move it around in my head for a while. Number 3, move it around a little bit more if I need to. Number 4, gather the tools and supplies. Number 5, make the thing I imagined. Number 6, repeat. My imagination is basically endless. I don't mean to say that I say that like I'm being kind of a show-off or anything. Parts of my brain are actively engaged in creating images inside my own head of the things that I want to create all the time. All the time. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about things that I want to make. They're going on in my head. I actually started calling them my subroutines back when I was in high school. They're always the things going on in the background while I'm going through my day. Even when I'm working on another piece of art, I'm working through other pieces in my mind at the exact same time. I'm always doing that. I once had somebody tell me when I told them this, told me how rude I was and that I really wasn't paying enough attention to them, and made me feel like absolute shit for how my mind works. And that person and I are no longer friends. Right now, as I type this, I'm thinking about a piece I want to start soon because the subroutines are putting it all together inside my head right now. I can see it inside my head. I can see it clear as day. It's there and it would like to be outside of my head. And believe me, it will bug the crap out of me until I let it out. It's definitely a strange sensation that's kind of pleasurable, but then a little painful too. It's kind of weird. Yeah, and I can hear you now saying, so what does any of this have to do with AI-generated images? Well, first, I'd like you to take notice of the fact that I've not called it AI art, because it's not art. A computer program cannot create art. Full stop. It can't. Art is made by humans using emotions for other humans with emotions. I actually have a problem with the artificial intelligence part too, because y'all know it's not some android like, Commander Data generating these images, right? It's a computer program that is only as smart as the persons who created it, and only as smart as the persons who are using it. It basically just scrapes data. It looks for matching points. I watched Savanna Alexandra, and I'll put a link below for Savanna Alexandra. She's awesome. She created a video that helped me kind of sort out how I was feeling about AI-generated images. Part of the reason I felt confident in her observations is that she works in illustration and character design itself. Yeah, she worked on Archer. She had several things that calmed me down a little bit. It kind of made me stop and think. She said AI image generators are basically just a tool. In the video I linked to, she uses some images that she created using one of those generators to create some reference pieces for her own illustration work. The use of AI-generated images that artists create, then use as reference for their own work, isn't something I had ever really thought about before. Then it hit me. Not everyone, and this includes artists, visual artists in particular, can see things inside their head the same way that I do. So yeah, I do think AI image generators are a tool that artists can use. No problem. And I also think they have some other potential applications as well that need to be explored or should be explored for people who are different people. Does that make sense? I may delve into that a little bit more in another post. So y'all are thinking that I'm okay with AI images. Nah, not at all. I think they're almost complete and total rubbish, with the exception of their use by artists as reference. What pisses me off the most is that my work can be used without my knowledge or consent. Oh, and without payment too. So let's continue. Copyright. Just to be upfront, I've had some not so great experiences with my ideas and artwork being used without my consent or payment. I should say consent, knowledge, or payment. And to say it merely pissed me off is the understatement of the millennium. Artists should be paid for their work, full stop. There have been times in my past where I was paid to simply sit and brainstorm ideas with the group, and I was paid for it. Usually got lunch too. I've been paid for simply creating sketches for a project as well. These things were like straight up. I draw this for you, you give me the money. Types of illustration jobs or brainstorming jobs. No, I have no problem with that kind of stuff. And anything that came out after those sketches or from those brainstorming sessions is no longer mine. I was just paid to sit and brainstorm. I was just paid to do some sketches. I got my money. Everything else is good. When I was contracted, yes, and there were papers to sign to do the brainstorming or the sketches, the I draw this, you give me money kinds of artwork. What the other entity got were my ideas and my rough sketches and design, or the use of an image that I created. Note the use of image, not the actual piece of artwork. That remained within my possession. If a client wanted the physical piece of artwork, then they paid me for that. That's in addition to what they've already paid me. Then the physical artwork belonged to them, and they can do whatever they wish to do with it. Put it on a billboard or a blimp, burn it in a fire barrel, whatever. I got my money. I was compensated. I had knowledge of what was going on, and I signed my name, and I took their money. It was a contractual agreement. What these AI image generating programs do is scrape millions of images from the internet, taking little bits from here and there and then mashing them all together. A single image may have many, many, many different art creators' work within it. It may also mash together original photographs and photographs of three-dimensional artwork with other two-dimensional artworks to create an image, with none of the artist's work scraped knowing, giving consent, or being paid for their artwork. That's wrong. That's like a million kinds of wrong. And then there's the question of whether or not the AI-generated images themselves can be copyrighted. If a person simply types in a list of what they want in an image, which can include the names of artists and their work, isn't that straight up copyright infringement? This happened to Sarah Andersen. She's another artist who I have deep respect for, and will list her opinion piece that she wrote for the New York Times down below that you can take a look at. What kind of recourse does she have? I mean, you can look at what was generated and you know it came from her images. You just know. Strange conversation. I mentioned earlier that I had an incredibly strange conversation via DM with a woman who contacted me, wanting to see if I would sell her a piece of my artwork that wasn't for sale. Because she wanted to use it as a giveaway, connected somehow with AI-generated images. Initially, I thought her whole spiel sounded a little scammy, and I told her so, straight up, told her, this doesn't smell right. She answered back, and she actually was legit. She offered me her personal accounts, and I did a little, she told me what she did for a living. She actually works in the arts. And there was verification. She is who she said she was. And it all checked out. But her thoughts regarding AI-generated images just boggled my mind. Her argument was that AI-generated images had the possibility to help me sell my physical artwork. I never did quite get an answer to exactly how this was going to happen either. When I told her I don't consider AI-generated images art, she seemed really surprised. When I mentioned copyright, things just went even further south, into territory that just infuriated me. She accused me of being far too centered on copyright, and I'm like, it's my work. It is the sum total of who I am, and you're telling me I don't have the right to it? That just didn't... I was accused of just being too focused on copyright. Too much copyright. And yeah, damn flippin' skippy I am. It's my work. I'm gonna be really on it about copyright. One of the things I messaged to her was that AI-generated images could never create something like Guernica because machines do not have emotions. She ended the conversation pretty much after that. But what really scared me is that I took a look at the AI-generated images on her Instagram account and wondered, how many of those many of my images are in those? Because frankly, I could see some of my work in there. I think I also understand why she so wanted to get a hold of one of my physical pieces of artwork as well. And it all just really creeped me out, and I didn't like it. And while I haven't blocked her, I'm keeping her on my radar because, frankly, it kind of scares me. And what really scares me is I don't own any of my images that are on Instagram. Instagram and Meta owns my images. I own my artwork, but those images belong to Meta. And Meta can do whatever it wants with them, including offering them up for AI generation programs. Okay, so long tail. So yesterday afternoon, I made small stuffed felt letters. They came out of my mind. They're sans serif, kind of wobbly. They look like something a 12-year-old would draw on their textbook covers, maybe circa 1980. I physically sat down and created something in the real world that I could see within my own mind. That may seem like some special, magical, divinity-granted talent to some. To me, it was years of practice, study, failures, more practice, and yes, I'll give you a little natural talent or inclination. It was nature and nurture. There's a line in the first Iron Man movie when Obadiah Stane holds up the tiny little arc reactor that he's just kind of ripped out of the chest of Tony Stark, and he shoves it in the face of one of his scientists and screams, "Tony Stark built this in a cave in the desert with scraps!" Because, the scientist couldn't get the large arc reactor to work. The creator part of me kind of understands that. And you can see where I'm going with this. Remember, step 1, I imagine something. Step 2, move it around in my head for a while. Step 3, move it around a little bit more if I need to. Number 4, gather tools and supplies. 5, make the thing I imagined. Step 6, repeat. Because even if I were in a cave in the middle of a desert and I had scraps to work with, I would still be making things. Granted, not arc reactors. I'm not a scientist, but I'd be making a lot of other things. And I'd be doing it all with no computer, internet connection, or an AI image generator required. So yeah, that's what I think about AI-generated images. I don't like them. I won't use them. Will not look down on an artist who uses them as a tool. I am scared as fuck that people who now think that they are artists because they can steal some of my artwork. That scares me and that angers me. And it makes my lifelong pursuit of art creation and being the artist that I am today seem tiny and small and so unimportant. And believe me, I'm a person who knows where I fit in the grand scheme of things. I know that my artwork isn't going to change the world. I know that I don't have any degree of fame or fortune or any of those things. I don't want those things. I just want to live my little life, and I want to make my art, and I want to connect with people who like my art, and work with people who like making art and be left pretty much alone to live my little life, if that makes any sense. So, thank you for listening to this first rather rambly audio. And I won't see you next Sunday, but I may see you Sunday after that. We'll see.